for the night. We rock crowds every time we play. Boom, boom, clap, yeah, we got it like that. Kick drum, hit your whole body go clap. Then the baseline move, take it off for the night.
What's going on, people? It's time for another Heat Check special. I know, the fragility of a season, it can be defined in the space of a single incident. Injuries, go-ahead buckets in the clutch, sweeps. That's been the talking points of the NBA this week. And this season has proven once again, it's so unpredictable as we take another turn. One thing you know that is predictable is that we bring the fire and the heat on this Heat Check show, yeah? And the playbook is ready to attack. So stepping in with the Eurostep, from France, Le Mans South forward, Ovie, Soko. Yeah, shooting from deep in LA with limitless range and limitless knowledge. Yeah, you know who he is. Three-time NBA champion, BJ Armstrong. And slam dunking with no prisoners here in the UK. None other than the hoop genius, the double M, Mooncey. And I'm here to run the point. So I say to you guys, energy this week. Yeah, I know Ovie's got a reason to smile, but how you man feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. I think I have a lot of reasons to be feeling very good at the moment. My team over here in France on the brink of making the playoffs, as well as, of course, my team over in the States dominating, absolutely dominating. I don't have my sweep throne over here. I was gonna have a chair with a broom right here, but
I came equipped for you, O. I came equipped for you, ready, O. I came equipped for you, ready. Yes.
So yeah, I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good, guys.
Well, I can't, you know, I'm trying to catch up to Ovie. Right now, when I watch the Suns play, I go, hey, I know he's fired up. Good for him. Good for Phoenix. They're playing great basketball. They are in the Western Conference Finals. How does that sound coming out of, you know, the Arizona over there in the Valley of the Sun?
Hey, listen, I'm happy for Ovie, and I'm hoping Ovie's boys keep rolling. Because, you know, here on the Heat Check, we like to have some fun. There's a few friends of the show, namely Mr. Paul George and Mr. Rudy Gobert, that are going to be seeing his Phoenix Suns in the next round. So I'm hoping Ovie's boys can bring those brooms back out and get rid of one of those two teams and get through to the NBA Finals. Otherwise, we're going to have some apologies on this show.
Yeah. No two ways about it. We're going to touch on the Suns because they're going to be a big talking point for today. But I want to catch the people up with the latest news. And of course, we have to start with some of the coaching decisions that's happening around the league. As the postseason rolls on, it looks increasingly likely that the San Antonio Spurs might be losing one of their stars as well in the shape of Becky Hammon. Look, the Spurs assistant coach has already been named amongst some of the top contenders for the Boston Celtics head coach position, and two more teams have reportedly asked for her to join their shoot list in terms of the Orlando Magic and the Portland Trail Blazers. Mo, both of our teams are two of the teams that's interested in bringing Becky in as a head coach, but does the prospect excite you?
Here, Becky Hammon's an amazing basketball mind, but I don't think she should go for any of these roles. The reason being, first of all, with all due respect to the Orlando Magic, Jaydee, coaching a rebuilding team is an extremely tough job. An extremely tough job. And I'm not saying she wouldn't be up for it, but I'm just saying if she's already in the San Antonio ecosystem, I think she's perfectly placed to take over when Greg Popovich decides to call it a career on his coaching gig, and she can seamlessly transition with that squad, knowing all the players, knowing the organization and how everything works. But for your first head coaching job, for anyone, regardless of it being Becky Hammon or anyone else, for your first head coaching job to be thrown right in to a rebuilding organization, which demands instant results, is going to be tough. Same with the Boston Celtics. They're in a different position. They've got young superstars, but they're expected to contend now. These are extremely tough gigs. I just feel like Becky Hammon's been such a great assistant in San Antonio. She's perfectly positioned to take over from Pop when he decides it's time for him to end his coaching career. And I think the San Antonio, the way that they develop players is absolutely fantastic, and it would just be a nicer fit. I think, you know, these jobs in terms of Orlando or Portland or Boston, I don't know if there's that much longevity in these, because a lot of those are expecting instant turnarounds in terms of Orlando, or in Boston and Portland, they're expecting instant success. They're hiring coaches because they say, we feel like we should be competing. We've got the players that should be competing. We want a coach to take us to the conference finals, to the NBA finals. And those jobs are the hot seat. So it's going to be tough for whoever takes on those roles.
I'm always loving the Popovich school of coaching, which includes Mike Budenholzer, James Borrego, Mike D'Antoni, Alvin Gentry. The list goes on. And Becky Hammon is one that's definitely come off of that school and is elevating her game in this coaching sphere all of the time. But BJ, do you believe, looking at some of the shortlists and some of the availabilities that are out there in the league right now, there is a prospect for her to become a head coach?
You know, in the NBA, you know, coaching leadership is a very difficult thing. In this league, like, you know, in the world right now, we desperately need leadership and wherever it comes from. You know, I remember coming into this league and I had a veteran player once tell me that, you know what, probably in your career, you're going to play for multiple coaches. And I remember what that veteran told me. He said, BJ, firing coaches is easy. Replacing that coach is the most difficult thing. And every year we go through this coaching carousel where coaches get fired, coaches get replaced, so forth and so on. But getting into that seat, as Mo alluded to, is very, very difficult because, you know what, moving over from an assistant coach, that one seat over, that's a very difficult thing to do. So when you do get that opportunity, you know, the first and foremost, you need players, right? You got to have a good team. You have to have a team that's ready to compete, but more importantly, give yourself a chance. So, you know what, I think she's more than qualified. I've had the opportunity to watch her coach in summer league and watch her coach as an assistant coach. But whatever decision or whatever opportunity becomes available, just make sure that you have an opportunity to at least compete at the level, because in the end, that job, that head coaching job, is a very, you know, it's very cutthroat. It's very, you know, it's very obvious what needs to be done. Either you win, you keep your job, or you lose, and you lose your job. So I just hope she has an opportunity and that she can pick a job where she at least has an opportunity to coach and compete at a high level.
Ovie, BJ alluded to it there. I remember her leading the Spurs to the Summer League title back in 2015. You see in her prospects, we even seen her be a head coach in 2020 in terms of when she stepped in for Greg Popovich. But you tell me, looking at the Magic, looking at the Celtics, looking at the Trailblazers, all of those individual projects, do you believe that this is a good place for her to start her head coaching career?
I think skill-wise and as far as her capability, she's more than capable, you know. But are these three jobs the right situation for her? I'm not quite sure, you know, because I think coaching, it very much comes down to the situation being the right fit in whether it actually ends up working out. You know, the players have to fit with the coach and the coach has to fit with the players and the whole organization and how they're trying to move forward. So, you know, with that being said, these are three organizations, two of which I believe they're trying to win extremely quickly in Portland and the Celtics. And obviously, I think Orlando, they're doing a little bit more of a rebuilding thing. But the two teams I previously mentioned, I think for her to have to step into one of two roles, that's a very, very big ask this early when you're talking about two teams who have big-time superstars that are really expecting to win. And I think that puts a whole other element of pressure on the coaching staff, on the front office to deliver, to try and keep those guys around.
Well, we've already seen her create history in terms of becoming the first woman to ever coach in an NBA game. But I'll just turn around and say that it's becoming increasingly likely that she'll become the first woman to actually lead an NBA team, because the conversations are becoming way more prominent now. So history is pending, that's what I like to say. Let's move on. And I don't know how I feel about this, because I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a bit of a free agent at this moment in time. The Orlando Magic are kind of disappointing me year after year. So I kind of look at it as, this is really exciting news. Yeah. Because the league have officially approved the idea. We can see that the wheels are very much in motion right now to bring two new expansion teams into the NBA. We saw Adam Silver turn around and suggest it, that it's on the table. The discussions are there, and now we actually have a fee in terms of as a franchise fee. $2.5 billion per team has been set. Now, BJ, I need to hear the curve here, because we're hearing that Seattle and Vegas are the front runners, which obviously brings huge amount of interest for numerous reasons. But how do you feel about the expansion overall within the league?
Well, I think financially, guys, it makes total sense. And especially in this COVID climate and all of the money that was lost due to the season, fans not being in the building. So that evaluation of $2.5 billion, I'm sure Adam Silver and the NBA League will say that's a low figure in the evaluation of these teams. You know, we're talking about $5 billion will be distributed amongst those 30 teams that are currently in the NBA. So currently, that is a way for them to generate fees, to generate some of the loss, and would be a nice way to kind of, you know, recuperate some of the money that they did lose, like every company, like everyone did during this COVID, you know, time frame. So I think right now it's a start. It sounds good. Those are two terrific cities. There are a lot of cities, maybe Louisville, Kansas City, other cities, San Diego, who would love to have teams as well. But without question, Seattle and Vegas, those are two places where I think an NBA team or professional teams could happen and could support, you know, the NBA, but more importantly, would infuse some more money back into the system.
I mean, the Vegas market is definitely always going to be a consistent fan favorite. We know how big of a city in terms of Vegas is, and it kind of sells itself. We've seen what it's done in the NFL. Combine that with Seattle, who's been crying out for a team since the Supersonics left. So I believe that those two prospects as front runners right now are very, very prominent and very, very promising signs for the NBA. But let's bring the people up to date with the news that all NBA fans have wanted to get our reaction towards, which is, of course, last week, Nikola Jokic was named the 2021 NBA MVP. No two ways about it. I'm pretty sure it was a show, I can't remember what it's called, that turned around and said that Jokic should be called the MVP way back earlier. But we're not obviously here to brag about names, but let's just actually focus on the achievement, because 41st in the draft pick only 7 years ago to now being, of course, the number one player in the game, especially last season. Mo, what's your reaction to the Joker being finally named 2021 MVP?
I love it, JD. The big men are back. You know what I'm saying? The time, it goes in cycles because the big men winning MVP now, it was Jokic, Embiid was in the conversation earlier as well. And this is supposed to be the era of small ball, but we've got two 7-foot guys batting out for MVP. I love to see it. It's well-deserved. Nikola Jokic has been so consistent. He played every game of this season, especially after making a deep run in the bubble last season. So he's not had any excuses about not having a lot of rest. And like, he's not exactly the most in-shape athlete to see on the court. So big up to Nikola Jokic. Like I said before, I think I said it a few weeks ago, Nikola Jokic has proven you don't have to be jacked with all the muscles to play ball and get buckets. It's the year of the dad bods. So everyone out there who's watching this, I don't want to hear no excuses. I want to see you all on the court this summer. I want to see everyone getting buckets. Because if Jokic is out there winning MVP, I need to see you guys all on the court as well this summer.
Ovie, we said it. We said it on this show. I'm going to give us the flowers we deserve. Months ago, we said this was going to happen. And he's actually done it. He's made history, the lowest draft pick ever to win the award. Your thoughts on the big man picking it up last week?
To be fair, I forgot whose call that was. Was that yours, JD? I think it might have been yours or Ellis's. I don't know. I'm not sure. It's big time. It's big time, you know. And what I think it's amazing for the game. It's great for the game. At a time where I think the game, it could be getting a little bit out of control as far as the style in which it's played, as, you know, when we're seeing guys like Stephen Curry, and obviously as amazing as it is to watch, I feel like, and we can all appreciate, that's not how you could probably typically run a basketball team. Whereas Jokic and, you know, his style of basketball, where he plays heavily through fundamentals, his passing of the ball, his vision, you know, his ability to truly play the game, I think the right way is amazing for the game. And obviously it's a huge personal accomplishment. And I think he's very, very deserving. So big shout outs to the big men. And yeah, man, congrats to Nikola Jokic.
Represent, as always. There's an overwhelming consensus, BJ. I mean, he was a runaway winner, 91 of the 101 first place ballot votes. There was no confusion as to who the people felt was the MVP this year. Just your thoughts on Nikola Jokic actually picking up the award and making history.
Well, I think Mr. Jokic was without question the MVP this year. And I thought he was very deserving of it. You know, we talk about the bigs are back. You know, I love the bigs. Even though I was a guard when I did play, I love the bigs because the bigs actually, they stabilize the game. They always have, and I feel they always will. But the most amazing thing about, you know, Nikola Jokic winning the MVP is that You look over the last 3 years, you have Giannis wins back-to-back MVP, international player. Jokic wins the MVP this year. Defensive player of the year is Rudy Gobert. So you can see the impact and the global impact of the international players in today's game, and they're playing the game at the highest level. Okay, when you look around the league, when you say, let's just say the top 10 players, you got Luka Doncic, you got Jokic, you have Giannis, you have Joel Embiid. You're talking about perhaps 4 out of the top 10 players are international players or more. So I see the impact on not only the offensive side, but now the defensive side as well. And you can see the rest of the world now has closed the gap and is truly now a global game and a global sport.
Represent European to the finest. Look, congrats again to the Joker on his awards, and I know 2 ways about it, he will definitely push on again next year. But speaking of congratulations, I just want to spend this time to congratulate another great who was honoured this past week on the Queen's list as an OBE, Luol Deng. As a former 2-time NBA All-Star and a player that has played 15 years in the league, this is thoroughly deserved. I just want to give you the reference. In 2004, when you were selected for the draft, it wasn't just because you were British, not just because you went to Duke, but you represented everybody, especially those of African descent as well. And you carried that journey from the beginning right through to the end. And you've inspired us all. So continue to do great things. We know you're doing great things with the Luol Deng Foundation. Continue changing the world, my friend. And congratulations again. We know you won't sing your own praises because of how humble and chilled you are, but we will give you your flowers here on the Heat Check. So I appreciate you, King, and keep shining. But from the greats, of course, that's creating their legacy today, to the greats that did it beforehand, let's dive into Hot or Not right now, man. Next man up. That's what we've heard. Those 3 words have stuck throughout my whole basketball life. I feel like whether you were playing, whether you were a fan, whether you're on the sideline, doesn't matter. Next man up. I feel like that's what everybody forever says, right? But I'm not one to hear this narrative because I've actually watched the postseason for a long, long time. And really and truly, it comes down to, as BJ would say, the superstars. Give the ball to your best player. So at this stage, with the Nets tied 2-2, and looking at the importance of this next game, because there will be no James Harden, there will be no Kyrie Irving, who are both extremely doubtful at this moment in the series. That next man up mantra needs to go to the side, and you need to give the ball to Kevin Durant because the pressure is on right now, Kevin Durant. I've already turned around and classified you as the best player in basketball. It's up to you now to prove it to the rest of the world and see your team through this series. Mo, do you believe the pressure is mounting too much on KD though?
I don't think there's ever such thing as too much pressure. You know, KD's been dealing with pressure his whole life. But this is interesting to me, JD, because this is the first time since 2013 that Kevin Durant is going to be playing playoff basketball without an all-star guard alongside him. Of course, he had Russell Westbrook in Oklahoma City. He had Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson in Golden State. And now, up till now, he's had Kyrie Irving alongside him and James Harden as well in that first round. So now it's all on KD. This reminds me of back in 2013 where he went up against the Memphis Grizzlies when Russell Westbrook was that injured. And Tony Allen was just trying everything he possibly could to slow down KD, and KD was still putting up, you know, like 35 points, 36 points in the games. He only managed to win 1 of those 4, but I think his game has evolved. He's a more experienced player, and I'm not necessarily looking for him to score the ball excessively. You know, I'm not looking for these. It's now a best of 3 series. I'm not looking for him to come out and score 60 points, 60 points, 60 points. He has to now take on the role of the facilitator. He now has to say, okay, cool, I know I'm going to draw all the attention from the defense. Let me get the other guys going. Joe Harris was 1 for 11 in game 3, and then he was 3 for 8 in game 4. We need to get Joe Harris going. All right, cool. The Bruce Brown's floater game, the mid-range game worked well because they dropped deep in the pick and roll coverage. Let me be the ball handler in the pick and rolls and start feeding him. Let me try and get these guys some looks because it's a team game. As much as we want to see the superstars come out here and do their thing, it takes a team effort, especially in the playoffs against a team like Milwaukee. It's a best of 3 series now, but you are right. The pressure is on KD because he needs to step up, whether it's scoring or whether it's facilitating for his teammates. There's no excuses when it comes to postseason basketball. There's no room for excuses and saying my teammates are injured. If you are what JD describes as the best player in basketball, it's time for you to prove it. Because in the previous series, I saw a young killer on the court with injured teammates step up, drop a 50-piece and win a game against the Brooklyn Nets. So it's about time KD does the same thing.
Say his name, Mo. Say his name so the people know. Yes? Say his name.
That's boy Jason Tatum, the problem, the chosen one. I'm telling you, KD's got to step up because if Jason Tatum can take guys like Tristan Thompson to win a game against the Brooklyn Nets when they were fully healthy, KD, you got no excuses now. You got no excuses now. You need to win at least one of these next 2 games. You need to win 2 of them to advance onto the conference finals.
BJ, there's no excuses anymore. I don't want to hear no talk about injuries. I don't want to hear no talk about, the big three haven't played together in terms of minutes together this year. This is championship or bust. We labeled it on Sunday, and I'm keeping the same energy. The heartbeat of that pressure is now on Kevin Durant. You asked for this team. You started this team. You're the nucleus of that franchise. So you have to deliver with those expectations regardless of the cards that's in front of you. Do you believe that the pressure is mounting on KD right now?
No, JD, simply no. I don't believe the pressure is mounting. And the reason I don't believe the pressure is mounting is because of 2 things. One, when you talk about winning a championship, right, it's a thing called consistency and chemistry. Well, when you look at this team, they've had either. They haven't had chemistry because those guys haven't been available. And right now, you're looking at this team, they've been bitten by the injury bug. So, no, I don't believe that this is any pressure. Right now, they are trying to figure out how to just get on the court and get guys healthy. And 2, the biggest factor is, and I've been saying this since the beginning, when you have a major injury, and any athlete will tell you, and a major injury either being an Achilles injury, we're talking about Kevin Durant, or ACL injury, I don't expect that player, especially in year 1, to be that player that we saw prior to the injury. Has KD shown flashes? Absolutely. Do we know KD is a very capable player? Without question. But at some point here, you know what? You don't just get up, start play in a high-pressure situation, and just bounce back. Then that's not how this works. So I think right now what you're seeing is an opportunity for the Milwaukee Bucks to rebound because they were down on the canvas, ready to be knocked out. And for some reason, they got up. I have no idea. They got up. They figured out how to get up in game 3. They could have easily have lost that game. I think that was a blown opportunity for the Brooklyn Nets, to go up 3-0 in the series. Now the series is tied 2-2, and injuries are a part of the game. Unfortunately, Kyrie gets hurt. Unfortunately, James Harden gets hurt. But athletes will tell you, that's part of the game. That's part of this deal. So let's see if KD can get back and play at that elite level. I don't know if that's possible, where his body is at. He's shown flashes, but again, that's different than a regular season. That's different than the pressure that's mounted right now. And more importantly, he's got to do it for 48 minutes in a fashion he hasn't had to do all season. So we're talking about a big task here. This isn't, I know you guys like to say 2K. This isn't 2K, guys. This is the real deal. Okay? This is the real deal. Okay? The real deal is a little different than the 2K and the cheat codes and all of that. But again, I'm sorry for showing my age right on that one.
Woo! Okay. Look, it would be unwise to count out the Brooklyn Nets because we know the star power that they have, even remaining still in the absence of James Harden and Kyrie Irving. But Ovie, there's an element of assuredness that I'm getting from Kevin Durant, that he's aware of the responsibility that he plans to play in terms of in this game. He's talking about running pick and rolls as normal. He's talking about increased ball handling responsibilities, gliding off screens, posting up smaller players. That's what I expect from Kevin Durant. But am I going to get the assertiveness and the aggression that's required with the pressure mounting? Or do you even believe that there's pressure?
Well, when it comes to, KD's intentions going into the game, those are very obvious. KD, he's a player that's won an NBA championship. He's won MVPs. He knows how to win. He's been in this. He's been to in high pressure situations before. But has he been in the same kind of high pressure situations before? Not quite. Mo sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier and said, he was in a little bit of a similar situation. However, my biggest concern with this whole deal for KD it's not necessarily the pressure. It's more so what BJ was talking about, and it's definitely very much so from a player's perspective. This comes from when a guy is recovering from an injury or he's just coming back after such a big injury like KD had. they're going to need time to be integrated back into the game. And throughout this whole season, I don't think we saw any long stretches of games where KD didn't have to sit out for one reason or the other. It wasn't always, muscle issues. Sometimes it was for COVID-19 protocol. However, he didn't play in any long stretch of games. So for him now to come in the playoffs and all of a sudden, they came in with Harden being healthy into the playoffs and they were expecting Kyrie back. And now to have, your two sidekicks all of a sudden disappear. This is a very, very different situation for Kevin Durant. He's a little bit older. He's coming off an injury and he hasn't played that much all season. So it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough situation for him. I wouldn't say necessarily he might be feeling the pressure, but regardless, it's not going to be an easy situation for KD.
Here's the thing, though. All season long, everyone's been saying, wow, we've never seen a player bounce back from an injury like this. And it's
Keep
not
that same energy, Mo.
It's 2 years. It's
Keep
2
that same
years.
energy, Mo.
Now, I don't know. I've not torn my Achilles. I don't know. And I don't want anyone to get twisted like I'm saying that. What I'm saying is, I don't want to hear the excuses before the games even happen. After the series ends, we can look back and say, okay, cool. Maybe he was struggling with an injury or whatever it was. But now looking ahead to these next 3 games, that can't be the factor in your analysis of, well, he got injured 2 years ago and he might still be a little bit rusty. Here's the way I see it is this is the reason you go hard in the regular season is to get the home court advantage now, because when you get the home court, your role players can step up. There's a reason we only saw guys like PJ Tucker and Pat Connaughton stepping up in the last games because they were at home in Milwaukee. The same way guys like the Brooklyn role players struggled a little bit on the road because that's just how the NBA playoff basketball goes. I'm expecting the rest of the Brooklyn Nets to step up. KD's got to be the leader, yeah, for sure. But I know JD don't want to hear it, but it has to be the next man up. Is Blake Griffin going to turn back the hands of times a little bit like he has shown flashes of throughout this series? Is Mike James going to step up and bring some of that EuroLeague flavor to this series? You know what I'm saying? It's got to be a whole...
Yeah, but
I'm not trying to hear the excuse of KD's coming off an injury 2 years ago now that I'm not expecting.
Let me just say...
I expect Brooklyn, with the depth in their squad, to still compete in a series.
I mean, when you're talking about two of your superstars, we're not talking about two normal guys that went down here. You're talking about a team that has very, very heavily put all of their eggs on 3 of their players. That's not to say they don't have exceptional talent around them that I think have proven themselves over the course of this season, over the course of the last 2 seasons as solid role players. But let's not get it twisted. Like, these 3 guys are supposed to win them the championship. You're not going to say your shooters are going to win you the chip. No, these guys have to show up. Yeah, it's their job. However, your superstars, the better players, are supposed to win you the chip. You feel me? And at the end of the day, everyone can say he had a heck of a bounce back year, etc., etc. Yeah, in flashes, he looked absolutely amazing, unreal, agreed. But we didn't see that for a long enough period for health reasons. As simply put, he missed considerable amount of games this year for health protocol. One reason or the other, KD wasn't on the floor. Whether it was the staff trying to rest him or, just the whole new load management thing that they're doing these days. However, he didn't play a lot of minutes this year. And now to use the sample size of regular season flashes of high performances and use that as your basis on how he would play now in the playoffs, which and we can all agree here is a completely different animal, completely different level of basketball, completely way more on the line than any regular season game. Now, I think we have to use a little bit of our own common sense and say, well, okay, he hasn't played at this level all season. Can we expect this of him all of a sudden just to switch it on like that? Because that's unfortunately not how it works. The older you get as a player, the less you can just flip the switch like that. The younger guys, you might be able to see them just flip a light switch on every other day, and the older these guys get and their bodies break down. This is part of the game. This is just how it goes. It's father time. You feel me? So I don't think you can completely rule out the fact that he came off an extremely huge injury. He's a 6'11" guy who doesn't move normal for his size. A lot of weight being put on it. etc., etc. I can go on for years about this, but you get the idea.
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how Kevin Durant responds with the additional pressure, and it's gonna be interesting to see how his teammates step up as well. Because obviously now all roads lead back to New York, so we're back in Brooklyn, and it's gonna be interesting to see how Game 5 does play out, because we have got it here for you on Sky Sports. Game 5, 1:30. You know what time it is? Sky Sports Arena, Sky Sports main event. It's tonight. That man right there, Kevin Durant, who some people have classified as the best player in the world. Some people have turned around and said, no two ways about it, he is up there with some of the greatest to ever pick up a basketball. We'll see that greatness tonight again. And of course, we've got Game 6, which is a definite gonna happen now on Thursday night, 1:30 a.m. Sky Sports Arena, as we head back to Milwaukee. But from a team that's still fighting in the playoffs to a team that's checked out and probably in their hotels in Cabo right now, we need to talk about the Dallas Mavericks, who have crashed out once again in the first round for the second consecutive year to the LA Clippers, I might add. But note, this time they did take the Clippers 7, and it was incredible. One of the best first round matchups we saw. But we're still looking at, where is the progression? What do we turn around and say about this Mavericks team, and where do they go from here? And unfortunately, we've seen the reports and the rumors about bust stops and whether or not Luka's going to turn around and actually extend with Dallas. We already know Mark Cuban is ready to give him the whole keys to the city. But it's whether or not maybe the pieces around him at this moment in time are making Luka Doncic entirely happy. And if you're thinking about those pieces around him that was supposed to be an X factor, especially propelling the Mavs this season, we can't look any further than Kristaps Porzingis. So BJ, I've got an actual big one this week, because I actually think it's time for a shake-up in Dallas, and I think the Mavs need to move away from Porzingis as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, look, I read the headlines, but here, I'm just going to pull it out here for everyone to talk, and let's have a discussion about this. You know, we always talk about getting rid of players and trading players, and that's really easy. Sounds good, sounds right. But my question is, okay, who are you going to replace these guys with? Okay, right now we are seeing, when you have a player like a Luka Doncic, okay, let's start there first and foremost. If you're building a team, we're seeing the journey now, the beginning of a journey of a modern superstar. And as this superstar, in talking about Doncic, let's figure out who he is and what he is. Is he a point guard? Are we saying he's going to be a point guard for his career, for his, majority of his career? Is he going to be a shooting guard? Is he going to be a small forward? And then how are we going to build a team around him that's going to complement him, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side as well? So the easy thing is to say, we need to replace Porzingis. And we look at the numbers and we look at the stats, and those are the analytics. But it's one thing, guys, the analytics can't measure. We can't measure a man's heart, and we can't measure a man's mind. And right now, we got to figure out how to build a team around Luka Doncic. That's the genius of being a star player. It's very hard to be the very best player on the team. We've anointed Luka Doncic because we see his talent. But right now, the genius of any great player or any leader is to get rid of all of the talk. Because right now, Luka Doncic is going to have to figure out how to build a team with the front office and figuring out what players he needs around him to support him to say, I'm all in. I'm going to hold my team accountable, and I'm going to be very responsible in this situation. It's really easy to look at Porzingis and say, oh, well, his numbers, he's not there. But who's to say that the other guy? You got to complement your best player with the player that complements this best player. And right now, none of us here can say definitively what Luka Doncic is. We can't say, because what we're doing as we're watching them play is we give Luka Doncic the ball for 95% of the time. He dribbles around, plays screen roll, and puts up massive numbers. Well, I can tell you this. You're not going to win a championship playing that way. Now, is it fun to watch Luka Doncic do his thing? Absolutely. Is it fun to watch young players run around at the beginning of their career, score a lot of points, do things we haven't seen before? Absolutely. But when you talk about winning, you need a team. And right now, we have to figure out how to build a team around Luka Doncic, because I think all of us can agree this man is a superstar. He is a star of stars. The light isn't too big for him. But how are we going to do it? That's the key. How? And Luka, that's just going to start with Luka. Luka, what are you going to do? So I think everyone has to play a role in this. and not just pointed at this guy or pointed at that guy. Because look, I've played on teams. I don't have to like the guy I played with. I don't even have to be friends with the guy. It's a business. And it's a professional relationship. So, and I don't know their relationship. I'm not saying that they like each other, they don't like each other. But what I am saying is, your best player, okay, now let's step up, commit, so that we can do this thing and build a team around you and give you the best chance to win the game.
Ovie, Porzingis is still owed north of $101 million, like over the next 3 seasons. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money on your roster. And he has a play option just for good measure. Like, if you're talking about the number 2 option on your team, I'm asking you at this moment right now, do you believe they should cut ties and move away, as the hot take says, or continue to ride this wave with these 2 Europeans at the helm?
Well, there's a couple different points. Obviously, he has the pretty considerable size contract that you obviously would have to trade with someone else for similar value. Now, there's not that many guys of that value, or I guess how many guys of that value are what Dallas necessarily need at this point. Will they make Dallas a better team? You know, I think we need to take into consideration, look, this is a guy who's come from New York. He's come off, a string of injuries. And, I think his game has definitely changed. And unfortunately, his game hasn't evolved in a way up to this point anyway that I think complements Luka Doncic very well as far as being another, focal point of that team. I definitely think they're missing dominance inside the paint, on the inside, and he's playing more and more from the perimeter, and I don't think that necessarily helps Luka Doncic. I think he has enough shooting around him. And yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to move him. I think maybe they could show a little bit of patience maybe for a season to see, okay, he's been able to stay healthy for a good portion of the season. Let's see if he can, just get his health right. And see if things do improve. But however, if things don't improve over the next year at least, I would look at them trying to, shop things around because, Luka and him are close. They're both European guys. They're both guys that played in Spain. They have a little bit of history, and I'm sure a lot of those guys on that Dallas team, they love playing together. I feel like that's the situation right now where there's not a lot of pressure. And, they've overachieved last season, so they're sort of ahead of schedule. But now what's going to happen is everyone sees how big of a star Luka Doncic is. And when people see a superstar, they expect championships. So what happened with LeBron James, what happened with KD. Steph Curry was able to get a ring before they got to that point. It's happening with Dame. You're starting to see that when you have a huge talent, championships are almost expected. And once Luka starts feeling that pressure, now he's getting all the golden kid chants, which is all fun. But when those chants start turning into expectation and saying, okay, you're the golden kid, you have to produce something, I don't know, that could put a strain on some of the team chemistry and it could eventually fall to pieces. So they'll definitely have to do something if nothing changes.
Mo, I got to balance it because if I'm going to be critical of Kristaps Porzingis, I have to also balance it from his perspective. He doesn't get enough touches. We watch the system. It is very Luka ball dominant. Rick Carlisle very much knows it's pick and roll with Luka. Who can we stretch here? Can we get a pick and pop here? Can Luka dominate from any position on the court? Yes, we know he can. But it doesn't take it away from the injury history, the money, and his impact right now, especially in the postseason. So I'm asking you, do the Mavs cut ties at this moment in time, and do you agree with me?
Okay, well, first of all, to answer your question, I think they do need to trade Kristaps Porzingis, but I don't agree that it should be right now. I believe that if you trade him right now, his trade value is at an all-time low. You need to let him have a few games next season, get healthy, and maybe show to a team that he can provide value to them, and then move on from him. The reason being, as BJ said earlier, it's all business, right? He's got 3 years left of a $101.5 million contract. NBA teams, they have finite resources in terms of the salary that they can allocate to players. Kristaps Porzingis came into the playoffs, put up 13 points a game, 6 rebounds, and 0.7 blocks. You can get that type of production from a mid-level player. That is not max contract level production. So I know you have to trade him for a contract of equal value, but it can be a combination of different role players that I believe could come in and give you that same amount of production. Now, BJ, I wanted to have a discussion on what the Dallas Mavericks do and the way that they play. It's not just Luka taking the ball and running screen roll because he wants to. That's done by design. That is the offense that Rick Carlisle has implemented. They have a very screen roll dominated offense, and then they spread the floor with shooters. Now, if you're a 7'3" max contract player like Porzingis, you're being wasted standing on the perimeter, waiting to get spot 3-pointers and being passive. If you're really a dominant force and you're 7'3", you really think Shaquille O'Neal would be happy to stand on a 3-point line and wait for Luka Doncic to run screen roll with everyone else? No, he would be in the paint saying, give me the ball. And Kristaps Porzingis can't do that because every time we see him post up, man, I see Marcus Morris push him out of the paint. Marcus Morris is like 6 inches shorter than him. Okay? First of all, if you're going to want to... You can't complain about
he's never been a post-up guy. He's never been a post-up
This is what I'm saying. You can't complain about not getting post-ups if you're not a dominant post-up player, right? You have to figure out what is your role in this team, what is your role in this offense, and from a Dallas Mavericks perspective, it's we can get better production for a much lower cost than what we're currently paying for this guy to stand around on the perimeter spot up shoot. Because you're 7'3", you're not even getting rebounds because you're outside of the paint. You know, you're relying on long rebounds.
Let me just answer that bit. At the end of the day, I don't think Porzingis was ever a post-up guy. You know, he dominated in New York. He's always played off screens. He's always played off pick and rolls, and he's been athletic to be able to pick and roll, or he's played off pick and pops, and he's played off closeouts. And he's been able to have mismatches because that is size and his shooting ability. Okay, now the guys that can match up with him height-wise, blah, 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 it makes more sense to put them on him, and he's able to stretch the floor that way. But ever since his injuries, he's not rolling the same way to the basket. Because after you land on a knee twice and you blow out your knee like that, he's not attacking the basket on those rolls. So a lot of the times, maybe on some of these screen actions, which if we're looking at the New York Porzingis, if you put him in a screen, a pick and pop, pick and roll action with Luka Doncic, that's a completely different dynamic you're talking about. But now, obviously, with the injuries and he hasn't necessarily come back as the team would have hoped, now those pick and rolls turn into a lot of pick and pops where teams now it's a lot more scoutable. You can just switch those. And like you said, because he's 7'3", if he's sitting out on the perimeter all game long, he's not being effective. He's not making any aggressive moves to the basket, and he's not putting pressure on the smaller sized guys. But again, like I said, it's because he hasn't recovered from an injury the same way. It's not because we're talking about, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I get it, right? But here's my problem. It's not the offense. The offense, he's basically a 7'3" shooting guard. There's ways to work around that on the offensive side of the ball, right? The problem lays on the other end of the floor because you watch the Clippers hunt him out on defense. Teams all season long will hunt him out, get a switch to the screen roll, and just go at him because he has no lateral movement left. He can't move his feet, and he just doesn't play defense at that level, okay? So we can talk about the offense and how he fits in and where he does fit in. Defensively, he's a problem. He's a negative. So whatever he does give you on offense, he's going to give up on the defensive end right away because any elite guard in this league can call a screen roll and get Porzingis switched onto them, then it's barbecue chicken, like we say every time, okay? So this is my issue is you're paying max contract money to a guy that's merely a floor spacer on offense now and can't play defense. And I get recovery from injuries. Every player in the league gets injured, okay? I get it. I understand it, right? But what the great players can do is when they come back from injuries, they adapt their game to fulfill what they no longer have, right? You look at players, even if they don't get injured, even if they just get older, you know, we talk about Michael Jordan was dunking all over the place, but later on in his career, he was shooting fadeaways. You know, we're talking about guys like even guys like Jason Kidd, who then went on to develop a three-point shot later on in his career. So your game has to evolve throughout your career. You can't just say, oh, well, I would be rolling hard to the basket, but I got injured. So that's not going to cut it. So you've got to look at Porzingis. You're talking about mismatches. He's 7'3". He should be able to shoot over anyone on a post-up. But yet every time I see him on a post-up, even though he isn't a dominant post-up player, he's not. He's not being effective there. And you've got to look at it. Okay, cool. If I don't have the same explosiveness that I did in New York to get all these massive putback dunks, to roll hard to the basket, I've got to find another way to be effective. Well, he hasn't done that. He's simply now a 7'3" shooting guard that they've stuck on.
Okay. So
and for me, if I'm running an organization, that's not max contract money.
No, I hear you, but you said, just my last point, you've said that you could trade him for role players. So in your opinion, Luka Doncic will be better off trading Porzingis away for more role players, and so you're talking about him being able to win a championship with a one superstar player team. I don't know the last time we've seen that happen. In this
the last time we saw that happen was the last time we saw that happen over was 2011 in Dallas with another European superstar called Dirk Nowitzki.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're talking about 10 years ago, mate.
Okay, you know what?
You're
It's
talking about a decade ago. It's a different game. Okay, you're talking about winning in a way that the game has moved away from. Now you're going to put him there with more role players, and then what's going to happen? He's going to come up in the finals against KD and Kyrie and maybe a Harden, and then what's going to happen? You're going to say, "Oh man, hold on, he doesn't have another superstar." It's the same thing that's been happening with Giannis.
Okay.
Until
what I will say, wait. Let me leave it
on this. Let me say this.
I'm ready to start ejecting people.
Let me just say this and then we're done, yeah?
I'm going to start giving some flagrants.
Let me say this and then we're
done. I'm done. Let Mo go.
You just let me say one thing, bro. The longer you say no, the longer this goes on.
I just want to end this.
You're saying you can't have one superstar and role players because what happens when they come up against the three superstars of Brooklyn? Well, Dirk Nowitzki and all those other guys on that Dallas team, who did they go up against? LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. The blueprint's there. It can be done. I don't want to hear that as possible. Luka Doncic would be more effective.
It can be done.
He had a secondary ball handler, 3-and-D guys that can roll hard to the basket and protect the rim. That would be much more effective than a hobbled Kristaps Porzingis.
I hear that. I hear you.
We will see.
I hear you.
That's what I would say. Leave it to the front office and we will see.
I hear you. We'll see.
I want to end this week on a positive one, yeah? Because like I said at the top of the show, there's something important that's happening right now in Arizona, and it's making a lot of people smile, and it's not just the sunshine. Yeah. And I know if you're a Phoenix Suns fan, it's hard not to get carried away at this moment in time. Monty Williams continues to demonstrate why he's a candidate for Coach of the Year. James Jones is... That executive roster that he's constructed at this moment in time is different level. And that backcourt marriage right now of Devin Booker and Chris Paul is looking like something from heaven. Yeah, it's phenomenal. All of those things being echoed, but my guy right now and the viewer take for this week, of course, Isaac, you know what it is. Yeah, I appreciate it. But he's taking things a little bit far this week, guys. And Ovie, there's no better place to start than yourself, because he believes if the Suns keep carrying themselves as they are and the Nets are no longer at full strength, there's only going to be one champion when it comes down to it, all said and done in July. Do you believe that, Ovie?
I'm not gonna lie, I believe it with my chest, you know. When I saw the takes for the day, you know, I said, you know what, I'm gonna be really humble about this, you know, because we're the underdogs, you know, we're not normally here, we've only just, you know, made it to the playoffs again after over 10, 11 years, whatever. But no, that's not how I feel. If I did that, I wouldn't be honest, and I wouldn't be being honest with you guys. So you know what? I back that 100%. Look, if the Nets aren't healthy, Suns...
Say it. Say it with your chest. Say it with your chest. No, say it with your chest. No, I'm telling you, say it with your chest. I want to hear the evidence. Say it with your chest.
No, because I say it because everyone else is going through such a minefield. It's almost like the perfect storm. You know, this looks like, you know, I spent 4 years in university, well, playing in university in the States. This looks like one of those Butler stories, you know, the Cinderella story. It's the perfect storm. You've obviously guys are going down, which is always unfortunate. Never like to hear that. However, you know, just the way these series are panning out, you've got Kawhi Leonard who had to go up against Luka Doncic, who took them to the brink. Now they're in another battle with the number one team in the NBA, the defensive player of the year. They're pushing them to their limits. You got the Bucks and the Nets over on the East having problems of their own. Trae Young giving Philly problems, and my boy's just out here sweeping. My boy's just out here sweeping up. Sweep him. Hey, yo. We ain't gonna. Hey, before we
feels good. It feels good. It sits right. It feels good.
Now I know where you get your energy from. You know, Celtics. You've been here before. We don't come here like that.
You know,
I'm gassed. I'm hyped. Now I see where your energy comes from. But this year, just leave that energy over here, you know? Because in Phoenix,
hey, listen, welcome to the winner's circle.
It's the desert out here.
I'm glad after 10 long years you finally experienced this. But you know what, Ovie? You know what? I see your energy.
Don't hate.
I'm rooting for your boys.
I just want
I need them to win this. Do you know why? Do you know why I need them to win this? You know, earlier we talked about the MVP and the big men coming back. I'm loving the makeup of this Phoenix team. You've got the traditional point guard, the pass first guy. You've got that scoring two guard playing that Mamba style of basketball right now, getting pure buckets. That's Devin Booker. You've got the dominant big man on the inside playing defense and offense. You've got the solid wing players that just know their role. They know how to play. They're going to hit their shots. They're going to play their defense. I'm loving what I'm seeing from the Phoenix Suns. The only question mark
we got everything. We really have everything.
The only question mark I have now is I don't think that they have been tested because they got through LA relatively easily and they swept away the Denver Nuggets. It seems like it's almost too good to be true, if you see where I'm coming from. Whereas I'm looking at the LA Clippers. Now, I would never bet on the LA Clippers not to choke away what they're doing, right? But they have been pushed to the brink by Luka Doncic. And I think weathering the storm like that gives you somewhat of a little edge so that when you do come up against adversity, you know you can weather it through. Now, I'm not saying the Phoenix Suns can't do it. I'm just saying it's been such smooth sailing so far that I hope a little bit of turbulence doesn't rock the boat too much because it's just been so easy for them throughout the postseason, and now they're just chilling, getting ready. But I hope they win. I got a lot of love for Coach Monty Williams. I think he deserves all of the praise. They've been doing excellent things, and I hope that they win the NBA Finals this year.
BJ, I need to hear how you feel, man. Because I'm seeing this all being put together right now, and it's looking like a remedy for heaven. That's what I'm telling man and saying it. Are the chips aligning? Are right now the Phoenix Suns the favorites? With all of the narratives that's being rewritten and all of the things that's happening.
Hey, talk to me, BJ. Hey, BJ, don't get crazy. Hey, talk to me nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to my guy Ovie. I'm gonna talk to. We're gonna make a championship run. You know, first things first. Never trust happiness, my friend. Never trust happiness. First things first. Okay. Second, go check out what we said at the beginning of this. Never trust happiness. Things change very quickly in this league. Now, I'm happy for the Suns. I love what they've done. I love what they're doing. But let's call it like we see it. And this is why you can't trust happiness. They beat an injury-depleted Laker team. Mm-hmm. It's a fact. Not taking away anything. Hey, they showed up. They handled their business as they supposed to. Then they play the Denver Nuggets. You just don't take Jamal Murray out of your lineup and then expect to just advance. All right. Now, give Phoenix credit. They're playing exceptionally well. And I like their big three right now, okay? Devin Booker, without question, he's gone from a good player putting up numbers on a bad team to he is an exceptional player now playing championship caliber basketball and leading the team. Check. He is a star now. You have the savvy veteran. Everyone say he's a pass first. Well, when I looked, the guy had 37 points in the last game. So I don't know how much passing he's doing. Right now, check. You got to score at that position. And then the most consistent player, and I think, Ovie, he is the best third player left in the playoffs. And you're talking about DeAndre Ayton. I don't think there's another star as the third option better than DeAndre Ayton right now on both sides of the court. He has held his own against the MVP. He was terrific in that. I saw that young man grow up right in front of my eyes. Phenomenal. Now, if there's anything that we have to look at, Ovie, is the depth for their interior players with the Phoenix Suns and what are they going to do when they play against a power forward who can actually score and dominate that game, because they're not very big and they don't have a lot of depth at that position, right? They're playing with Jay Crowder, they're playing with Dario Saric, but at some point you're going to face a Giannis, or you may face a player who can play at that position, and that's going to be a problem. I love what they're doing. I'm not taking away anything from them. I think right now they are playing at an elite level, but I'm not going to get carried away yet, because the reason I'm not is because now they're going to face hopefully in the next 2 rounds, they're going to face the best of the best. And more than likely, those teams will be fully healthy. And then let's see what it is. So I think there's a lot of basketball. I think the Clippers, they are battle tested, as Mo said. Utah, they're tough at home. Okay, but if you're asking me right now, Milwaukee to me is the team that has shown what we consider, or what I consider, basketball integrity. They were down.
But you know what though? I understand that. I hear you. However, just the way things are panning out, at whichever point we meet any of these teams, those guys are expected to win. The Suns are the Cinderella story right now. The pressure, the heaps of pressure, isn't on our side. So we weren't supposed to be number 2 team in the West. We weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs. Maybe supposed to be a borderline team in the playoffs. So you're taken out of the consideration. Let's not forget. I remember when Mo was talking earlier on this year about, we'll see who makes the playoffs. We have seen, and we see who's still in that joint too. But anyway, that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant.
All I'm gonna say is,
let me just finish. My thing is, whenever we do meet any of these guys, those guys are gonna have the heaps of pressure, and we've seen guys on all of these teams crumble in front of pressure before. You feel me? And to put pressure on the side of the other team that Chris Paul is on, you don't think Chris Paul also knows how to maneuver that and use that against these other guys? There's a whole other
he's crumbled under
element.
pressure enough times.
No. Chris Paul's been injured. Let's
he's
put some
crumbled,
respect on his
bro.
name.
Watch him at the Clippers.
He's been injured.
Anyway.
Let's put some respect on his
watch the
young
games.
people. Okay.
But yeah.
Hey, yo. Tatum's at home anyway. I don't want to hear it from you.
Tatum's been to the conference finals more times in 4 years than Chris Paul has in his career.
On that note, I'm going to make sure I text DA after the show and tell him that BJ Armstrong said he's the best third option left in the playoffs. Yeah, so shout out to you each and every time. But discussing people that are still discussing their future, we've got a lot of things that's coming up, especially in the summer. Of course, free agency is there. So that's a big talking point right now and off the court. Look, the NBA playoffs right now, second round. I know it's catching the imagination of everything that we wanted. And many of these players are making a case for why they deserve to be even deeper consideration when it comes to the big summer, the free agency. The free agent market this year is actually going to be fairly small if we're actually comparing it to other seasons, especially in the off-season. But top of that list might be Atlanta's John Collins. Look, he's able to do everything that you kind of want with a modern-day big. Can stretch the floor, very efficient. He's got the athleticism to match absolutely everything. But remember, before this season, JC turned down that $90 million extension from the Hawks. He turned around and decided to do something that every player in this league should do, and that's back themselves. Now, sitting in the second round, tied 2-2 with the top seed in the East, he's playing a pivotal role. And sometimes when you back yourself, you get the best returns. So, deciding on how things work out, of course, we still need to determine whether or not where his future is actually going live, because it's going to be a chess game, and no doubt about it, BJ will explain that to you in a second. But that's not making an excuse. Yeah, John Collins right now is balling. And Atlanta right now, even though they're happy with the progression, they're sweating, because in the summer, it's going to be a game of chess when the numbers actually match up.
The NBA season has flown by, and we're only a few weeks away from a new champion being crowned. This does also mean, though, that we're a few more weeks away from one of my favourite times of the year for NBA players. That's right, it's secure the bag season, baby. So whether it's through being drafted or becoming a free agent, the summer is the time of the year where NBA players put their pen to paper and ink deals that turn them into millionaires. So which players should we be keeping an eye on this summer? Well, whilst Trae Young has been grabbing all of the headlines down in the ATL, it's actually his running mate whose contract comes to an end very shortly. That's right, the 4-year rookie deal that John Collins signed back in 2017 comes to an end when this season finishes. This does mean that John Collins will be a restricted free agent, meaning Atlanta can theoretically match any offer he receives, but this is what makes it such an interesting situation. Back in December, Collins reportedly turned down a $90 million extension from the Atlanta Hawks, instead opting to bet on himself to prove that he's a max or near max level player. So, will he be offered the contract that he feels he deserves? Let's break it down. Well, at face level, when you look at the stats, things aren't looking great for JC. A big part of why he felt eligible for a big payday was his ability to average over 20 points and 10 rebounds per game. He was almost reaching this milestone in his sophomore campaign, and last season he did average these numbers, but this season, those numbers have taken a bit of a hit. That does not mean by any means that John has become a worse player this year, but it's more so that the Hawks have become a better team and upgrading their roster, meaning he is attempting less shots because he's sharing the ball more. In fact, let me tell you that you can't simply look at the stats to judge his impact on the team. He's a high-flying forward who can throw down electric dunks, and he's started to expand his range out to the perimeter. But John Collins has quietly been making an impact on both sides of the court. The Hawks surprised many by defeating the Knicks in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and John was a huge part in nullifying the New York superstar Julius Randle. According to NBA.com's matchup data, Collins guarded Randle for over 63 partial possessions in the series, holding the league's most improved player to just 18 total points on 6 from 25 from the field. That's 24% shooting. And bear in mind, that included 2 from 11 from behind the arc. That's right, 18.2% from three-point land, and he forced 6 turnovers to boot. We're talking about a guy that averaged almost 25 points a game in the regular season, now being held to less than 18 a night. And I know it took a team effort, but John Collins was a huge part of that. It's no coincidence that the game in which Collins was limited to under 15 minutes of action was Atlanta's only loss in the opening round. His stat lines may not jump off the page, but the efficiency with which he's scoring should. In that first round, he hit 54% of his shots, 39% from downtown, and 91% from the free throw line. It's very rare that you see a player of his size flirting with the infamous 50-40-90 club. One of the reasons behind Collins' improved play has been the coaching change that the Hawks underwent. He was unhappy under Lloyd Pierce, but he looks rejuvenated under Nate McMillan. The question now is though, will that be enough to keep the big man in the ATL, or will one of the many suitors in free agency swoop in and take his talents elsewhere?
I have to give General Manager Travis Schlenk a lot of credit because he's taken the reins in 2017 and he's actually converted this team into the direction they would have wanted to go in. But BJ, this is where we need to add some context to it because John Collins is a restricted free agent. And that's important because he's a free agent and he can sign an offer sheet with any team, but the original team can still retain him if they match, of course, the terms of that offer. So knowing all of that, taking all that into consideration, this is a classic game of chess, right? The Hawks are playing. They're allowing him to test the market to see what's out there. But do you actually see him remaining a Hawk for next year?
Well, there's been some talk for years now about how the restricted free agency worked because the Atlanta Hawks know the following. Whether it's restricted free agent or he goes out and he gets an offer sheet, the Atlanta Hawks are still in the driver's seat. They can offer him the most money out of any of the other 29 teams. So when you say free agency, he's not really free. The Atlanta Hawks can sign him for the most money, and they've elected not to sign him using that space. They're saying, go out, test the market, and then we'll figure out whether we want to match it or not. So, JD, it puts them in a really nice position as the team that drafted him. And now, John Collins and his team have to go out there and figure out what is his true market and what is his true value.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting summer. And of course, John Collins is still wrapped up in an important series because he'll have one eye on his series, but of course, one eye on some of the other series that's occurring right here on Sky Sports this week. We've got so much news to break you down with, and I'm going to, of course, start with the WNBA action that we've got. Connecticut versus Chicago. Of course, it's going to be live for you here on Sky Sports, 7 p.m. Sky Sports Mix, an important weekend of action. And of course, on Saturday as well, we have In the Paint with Mo, which is available on Snapchat. And that's because, of course, you know what time it is as well. All roads lead to the Eastern Conference right now with the Brooklyn Nets. And they are tied in a massive series with the Milwaukee Bucks. We're back in Brooklyn this week, guys. Game 5, which is going to be incredible. Game 6, which of course we're bringing to you here on Sky Sports on the Thursday. How will the Nets fare with a depleted roster? And of course, shout out to my guys on the West Coast, the Suns, who are waiting to see who they'll face in the Western Conference Finals. But we'll be back next week. Gents, it's been a pleasure, as always. I know we ran a bit long this week, but you know what it is. Yeah, every single time you have to bring the heat check, the energy, the vibes, and of course, the positive news. Yeah. Until then, everybody stay blessed and stay tuned for the action that's here on Sky Sports. Keep bucking.
Sky Sports. Feel it all.